What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Phil Daru. I'll just give you a brief background on who Phil is. Phil is a world-renowned strength and conditioning coach and is the founder of Daru Strong, a brand dedicated to helping one's performance, life, longevity, personal growth, and becoming the best versions of themselves. Phil also owns and operates Daru Strong Performance Center in Boca Raton, Florida. He is also working with some of the most elite athletes and fighters in the world, such as Joanna Jedrzejczyk, Dustin Poirier, Junior Dos Santos, King Mo Lawal, Tecia Torres, Colby Covington, and over 80 pro fighters each week. Phil's resume also includes world-renowned celebrities, NFL players, world champion boxers, UFC fighters, and Olympic athletes. This guy is the best of the best, and it's such an honor to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. I appreciate that.
No worries, that's fine. So I just want to take it all the way back, Phil. Can you just talk to me about how you got into mixed martial arts and like how did you get into strength and conditioning? Like what attracted you to that?
Strength and conditioning, I was actually getting ready for football, American football, my freshman year of high school. And so I needed to get bigger, stronger, faster. So I started to learn more about weight training and power production and programming per se. And it took me around this like deep rabbit hole of like all these other programs and periodization schemes. But I decided to really go in on it once I was done with college football. I went to high school, played there, then went to Alabama State, ended up playing for 2 years there. And then ultimately what ended up happening was my parents ended up getting, well, my mother ended up developing lupus, which is an autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
And my dad got in a bad car accident and basically they couldn't work. So there was no jobs or anything of that nature. There was no money coming in. So I decided to basically let go of my scholarship and come back to my hometown. And it just so happened that my parents moved from the place that they were in to a smaller city called Port St. Lucie, which is about roughly 90 minutes from ATT headquarters, where I met Dean Thomas. And Dean was my first coach. If you guys don't know who Dean is, ex-UFC fighter, works with Tyron Woodley. He also does what's the Dana White looking for a fight, does that too as well. He's a comedian now, so he's doing a bunch of different things. But when I was 19, I ended up going to his gym. It was American Top Team Satellite Gym, and I just wanted to compete. I wanted to do something athletic because my essentially my football career was over. So I was like, all right, I need to do something. I had a background in martial arts. I did Kempo karate as a kid. I also boxed amateur when I was in Alabama. So I was always into combat sports. I was always into fighting. Again, it was just really knee deep into football at the time. So after that, I decided to transition and go into it. And, the first, I want to say 3 weeks, I was kind of apprehensive on actually grappling and doing jujitsu and all that. I just wanted to box.
Mhm.
So Dean was telling me, like, if you want to do this, you're going to have to get on the mats. Like you're going to have to grapple. And the first class I did, I actually did really well. I used my athleticism to my advantage, my strength. And so I ended up getting like a deep, schoolyard headlock on one of the guys that's been doing it for a little bit longer than me. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm actually pretty good at this. I should probably stick with it. Um, Now I learned that that really doesn't do much and I need more technique. So, but anyway, so I ended up really working on developing a strength base and a conditioning base for mixed martial arts. And from there, I was just training myself. So I was an amateur for about 6 to 8 months. Successful amateur, did really well there, and then turned pro. And at that same time, I ended up opening up my own facility, my own gym. It was at the time it was very small. It was like 800 square feet. I only had about 12 members. One of them was my wife to be. Actually met her there, and so I was working there. I was doing boot camps. I was training my teammates and myself, and then it just started to catch fire. That I was actually the guy to go to for strength and conditioning and for fitness in the area. So ended up being like almost a local influence or a local authority in the area of Port St. Lucie and Treasure Coast, and down in Florida, and grew that up to about from 800 square feet, we went to 11,000 square feet within a year. And so it grew very fast, and I had to kind of catch on business wise, but I knew what I knew from a strength and conditioning standpoint. I knew that I was able to get results. Now I had to learn more about the business side of that. Now that took a large amount of focus away from my actual training as a fighter. So my first pro fights didn't do too well, wasn't really focused on the fight itself, took some losses that I shouldn't have. And ultimately, down the line, I knew that I made the right decision to retire from the sport and get into more coaching and running my businesses from that perspective. At the age of 26, I ended up retiring due to two reasons. One, I was getting a large amount of concussions, had a large amount of concussions from football, and they just accumulated over the years. And then on top of that, the focus wasn't as there. I was very successful running my own business. So I talked to Dean, and he was like basically telling me that, you're going to be successful in whatever you do as long as you focus in on the things that you need to. And then he's also talking about my brain. You can have a knee injury, you can have a wrist injury, but you really can't come back from a brain injury. So, at least from the magnitude that was happening to me. So I ended up actually, again, letting that go and going full in on my business and on my coaching. And I didn't really want anything to do with MMA for like a year and a half. I really was like a little bit bitter. I still really don't even watch football because of it, to be honest. Like I barely watched the Super Bowl the other night. And yeah, I mean, it's just because it's just hard for me. So I didn't watch MMA, but then I was getting really, really like almost I was getting homesick. Like I wanted to be a part of it still. And so I called Dean up, and he was actually working at the main headquarters at American Top Team at the time as one of the head coaches. So I called him, and at the moment I was running the gym, I was doing some online coaching and stuff, and I was putting out content. So I asked him, I was like, if you have any fighters that you want me to work with, I have some free time, I can go down there. And he goes, you may be in luck. It was just perfect timing that the old strength and conditioning coach was actually leaving. So he said, can you get your resume together? I got my resume, drove down there, and ended up training the first day. I believe I trained Dustin Poirier, Hector Lombard, King Mo Lawal, and Dia Davis, which is Dustin's boxing coach. And so I trained those guys first day. So it was fun, thrown into the fire a little bit with the main guys. But the one thing that I was able to do was be confident in my approach and take the initiative and take control of the situation, because I mean, these guys are world-class fighters, but I know that they're not world-class weightlifters or world-class powerlifters or guys that been in the weight room at all. So I knew that what I knew, and I was the expert in that field. So it wasn't that bad. Like I wasn't like, oh man, it's Dustin Poirier. And the great thing was I used to train with those guys. I used to come down there and I used to cross train and do sparring sessions with them. So it wasn't a big deal. And actually they knew who I was, just from seeing me around the gym here and there. So it actually helped out with the buy-in perspective. And so fast forward about 3 months later, I ended up getting a full-time job. I spent I would say about a month or 2 months of not getting paid and actually just driving down there day in, every day, pretty much for 5, maybe 6 days a week, and doing it for free. But that was the cost. It's like Dustin say, you pay the cost to be the boss, and so that's primarily what ended up happening. I ended up making sure that I was able to solidify my whereabouts, where I was, and how I can actually help these guys and get them the results that they need. So I ended up getting on as a full-time strength and conditioning coach for American Top Team. Ended up getting a bunch of good accolades, trainer of the year awards and things of that nature, networking, obviously working with world-class athletes on a daily basis, also working side by side with world-class coaches, being a part of an establishment that is known for creating excellence and being dominant. And then it just so happened that at that particular time, I had set a goal. I was a 5-year goal where I wanted to start there, and then I wanted to reopen up my own facility more down south where the headquarters is. And so I set the 5-year goal, and I was approaching that goal. And so by that time, it just felt right. And COVID hit, the whole, COVID-19 thing hit. And so for that, it was like, all right, it was kind of my time to branch out and do my own thing. And that's when I opened up my own facility and ended up, doing what I'm doing now. ended up moving over to Boca Raton, which is about maybe 10 or 15 minutes away from the American Top Team headquarters. And now I work with not only ATT guys, but also Sanford MMA, and also my judo Olympians, my professional boxers. And then now I'm also working with high school athletes, college athletes, and professional football players. They come in and out, when the season's not in. But yeah, it's really good. I'm really focused now more so on my online stuff, where I have all my programs, my mentorship that I'm working with. Now we have I want to say over 600 coaches that I mentor around the world. So I'm really, really proud about that. I'm happy that these guys and girls are putting their trust in me to get them to where they want to be from a coaching standpoint and a business standpoint. Yeah, the future is bright, man. We got a bunch of things that's going to be in the works in the near future. So a lot of things going. I got an apparel line coming out next month, so it's gonna be good.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, like the growth that you've had is actually amazing, and you definitely deserve to be where you're at the moment. And the funny part is it's literally like the beginning for you, because you've just opened up your own facility. And yeah, talking about Dean Thomas, I was actually doing a podcast with Jose Torres yesterday, and he
Shorty,
lives with Dean
Shorty.
Thomas. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, Shorty's funny, man. Shorty's one of the fighters that I worked with at ATT. It's just good to see that Dean is taking it and basically doing what he did back when I was working with him, when I was a fighter for him. He worked with a smaller group of guys, and girls, and he's putting all of his efforts into those 3 to 4 individuals. Whereas at ATT, he really didn't have that. He had to work with a large amount of people, whereas like 60, 70 guys, each week. And you really can't put as much focus in on those individuals. It's just not possible. So now he's gotten back to his roots in a sense, and he's back in Port St. Lucie. So it's actually really cool to see.
No, for sure. Yeah, no. You obviously, we've talked about you coaching all these high level athletes, and I know that you helped Dustin prepare for Connor, right? Just in January, and an incredible performance. What's it like having that pressure, to coach someone like at that level? Do you ever get like nervous or anything like that?
In the beginning, yes and no, because I knew I had to prove myself, but I also knew that I knew what I was doing. I knew that I had something to give to those individuals, and I knew that it was something that they haven't gotten before. Was a structured program, was a structured way of doing things, and then looking at it from a fighter's perspective too as well. The good thing about me was that I was in their shoes at one point in time, maybe not at that magnitude of what Dustin's been through, but I know how it feels to step into a cage and fight. I know how it feels to have to cut weight and still go through a training camp. I know how all of that feels. So I was able to kind of manage that in a sense of understanding, okay, now it's going to give me confidence, because the more and more I do it, the more confident you're going to get, and the more experience you get, the better off you're going to be, and the more success you get, the more confident you get. So when I started to really, really see that, okay, this is working out, my confidence kind of grew there. And then from there, I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to get better. So with that, using my abilities to learn and to grow and to progress allowed me to stay confident in my approach. And so I didn't let it get to me from that perspective too much. I just made sure that I knew what I had to do was appropriate for that athlete, and that we would get the results necessary for that particular individual.
Incredible. And do you do any like any mindset work or anything like that, or is it solely focused on strength and conditioning?
For the younger guys, yeah, like even with the high school kids that I have, not just the fighters, but the football players, the younger fighters too as well. Those are the guys that you need to somewhat motivate, get them inspired in a sense, keep them in perspective of what the fight is, and that it's just another day in the office type deal. With a guy like Dustin, I really don't have to do that. He's been fighting for decades, and at the highest level, so it's not as appropriate for me to do that for them. It's more so to put things in order, to not let them overthink things or overtrain themselves. Almost have to pull them back in a sense, especially like a guy like Dustin, and then when I used to train like with like Edson Barbosa or even Joanna, Those are the type of people that I really did not have to motivate. They were self-motivated to begin with, but putting them in the proper positions and actually pulling them back and kind of guiding their motivation in the sense of making sure that everything is put in place correctly so that they can have a smooth process throughout the camp. It's more about mitigating fatigue and overtraining as opposed to ramping them up because they're already self-ramped up in a sense.
Yeah, no, of course. You've obviously worked with a lot of athletes, like we mentioned. And I know in one of your podcasts I was listening to, you mentioned that you also went to coach Logan Paul at one point. What was that experience like?
Yeah. It's funny. We had a mutual friend. One of the guys that I train now, Sullivan Barrera, actually worked with his coach that he has,
Mm,
and so yeah, I went out there to California, went to his house. It was fun. I mean, he's definitely takes it serious. He's not a guy that just kind of trains for no reason.
mm,
Um, he was hitting the bag. I mean, we ran through a couple of conditioning sessions, and I gave him some advice here and there. Good kid, has a great head on his shoulders. Obviously, super successful. So I like to be around successful people because again, it bleeds off into what you're doing. So yeah, it was fun. I know that one of my guys, Jake Bostwick, actually went and sparred with Jake Paul just recently too, as well, and said the same thing. These guys, even though they're YouTubers, man, they're taking the boxing serious, man. So it's fun to see, and I like the fact that they are actually, you know, taking initiative and getting the proper training that they need, as opposed to just going out there and doing whatever. But it was a good experience. I tell you the one thing though, we were training and he had to cut the training session a little short because he had to go to the Catalina wine mixer earlier or later that day. So he took his private bus or whatever he had, an RV, to his yacht, which then landed a chopper on the yacht to take him over to the private beach or private island where the Catalina wine mixer was. I thought that wasn't even a thing.
yeah.
I thought it was like Step Brothers. I thought he was playing with me for a second, and it actually happened. I seen it. He did it in front of me. I was like, what the hell? So yeah, fun to watch. I mean, a young individual like that makes so much money and do the things that he loves doing on a daily basis. You can't knock him for that. People will say, it's making a mockery of boxing, or it's not good for the sport. But you can't blame that individual because he's just doing what he knows best, and that's entertain people. And so if he can entertain in a way of him being as athletic as he is, well, okay, well, I'm not going to blame him for that. You can blame the other organizations for letting it happen, but you can't blame the kid. He's just doing what he wants to do.
No, of course. And you just touched on there as well that you enjoyed to be around people who give out good vibrations. And one person you talked about as well is Jake Bostwick, who I actually had on the podcast the other day, who's incredible. What was it like? Because I know that you cornered him for his first bare knuckle boxing fight. What was that like, cornering someone like that for a sport like that?
Yeah, I've cornered Jake in the past for his MMA fights,
Hmm.
and it's somewhat similar. The only thing different is that you obviously are going to have more cuts, more lacerations and things of that nature. But for the most part, it's all the same. Like getting ready, prepared backstage. They're still warming up the same way. It's a faster fight. Um, Obviously, the intensity is a little bit higher, but I think it's an easier transition from MMA because of the glove size
Hmm.
than it is true boxing. So I know it's bare knuckle boxing and it is only hands, but from a just a I guess the intensity standpoint and the ramifications of the injury effects, it's somewhat similar. I know it's definitely a brutal sport. Don't get me wrong, but if one person is able to do that sport, it is a guy that is named Brutal Boswick. So it makes sense to get him in there and see what he's got. It was fun because I've known Jake for a long time. I've known Jake for probably about 4.5, 5 years now.
Hmm.
I know his whole family. We're super close. So watching him go into a new sport and take over in this new sport and get almost a rebirth in a sense, because MMA wasn't really going his way. He wasn't really feeling the training. He really didn't want to grapple. He barely kicked at all. So it's really good. He made that transition into boxing, and then I think the sport of bare knuckle is tailor made for an individual like that. So it's really good. He has the look appeal. He obviously has the charisma. And he can fight. So we'll see what happens. But I'm very excited for him, in the sense that he gets to redo all the things that he wanted to do. And now he's got a new sport that he can, again, put his mark in this industry and make sure that he can and sustain it too as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, of course. And obviously, like we touch again, that you've trained with so many athletes, NFL celebrities, even Timberland himself. Who's one person that stands out to you that that's just different, like different on another level, where their mindset is just incredible?
Man, it's a guy that you probably wouldn't even know yet. It's usually the guys that are sleepers. I got a kid by the name of Tyler Ray, who just fought recently on a local show. He fought for Bellator before, but he reminds me of Dustin in his mindset, but is super athletic, very powerful, very, very explosive, has a great head on his shoulders, is a guy that does anything I tell him to do. And obviously it's going to be for his own good, but he's very coachable, which is always awesome from a coach's standpoint. He knows what he wants and he goes out and gets it. We set up game plans. He's always asking me, what he needs to do outside of training. So it's like he's one of those guys that are very self-motivated, and again, one of those guys that have to pull back. But it's a pleasure to have him in the gym because he brings up everybody else's morale. He brings up everybody else's, efforts and intent. And so it's always a good guy to have around a big group of individuals, especially fighters, because they're not going to let the young kid, show them up a little bit. At the same time, he's old enough and experienced enough to motivate and to keep things going, right? He's not tired. He's not, he always wants to work. And that's always a good thing. And looking at it now, I want to see him take it to the next level. And I know he will. It's just, fine tuning little details. But again, Tyler Ray, he's a guy that always looks like, I always get this on my Instagram. He looks like Dustin from the side view. They always think it's Dustin, but it's not. he's got less tattoos and a little bit more muscle. And he fights at 170. So, but yeah, I mean, from a mindset perspective, one and the same. Dustin and him, one and the same.
Brilliant. And what are your goals now, Phil? Because I know obviously you mentioned, you got your own apparel coming out. You've also started a podcast, which is incredible, and I advise everyone to go and watch. And I think Dean Thomas was your first guest, right, on that podcast?
Of course.
Yeah. So what are your goals now? Because obviously you've opened up your own gym as well. What's next for you?
Man, I know it's gonna sound a little self-centered, but I kind of want the world. I want it all. I
Yeah.
want to be as successful as I possibly can be, right? I want to utilize a platform from where I started and let it catapult me into other things, other branches of opportunities, other things that I can do for other people, right? Giving me the platform to help other people, to bring people up, making sure that, like, for instance, this gym, I'm bringing other coaches on board. I want those individuals to get some success as much as I have got the success with working with high level individuals, with high level athletes. And when I mean individuals, high level individuals, I'm talking about people that have been successful in anything, right? Business, right? Entertainment, whatever the case. As we talked about with Timberland, I have a conversation with Timberland at least 15 or 20 minutes before our training session because I'm trying to soak up as much knowledge as I can from that individual, because obviously he's doing something right and he's done something right for the past, I don't know, 30 years. So, I'm always in the process of learning. I'm always in the process of progression. From a goals perspective, I want it all, man. And I can pinpoint it out, but we can take a whole nother hour and a half to talk about these goals. It's probably going to be a book of mine soon at some point. But yeah, I got from a vision standpoint, I want Daru Strong, my name, to be solidified throughout the world as something of inspiration, something of motivation to get people up, to get people out, and to get people to get what they want in life, which is ultimate success and happiness. So whether it be, if I use this platform from a coaching standpoint to help do that, then so be it. But I'm thinking bigger and better each and every year. The game plan is always going to be, to make sure that I put myself in a position to help other individuals out on a constant basis. Is this one of the reasons why I decided to put out content? Wasn't because I wanted to show me. It was more so that I can show other individuals how to do this thing right, because I didn't have the opportunity to do that. I didn't have, mentors that I could talk to on a daily basis. Now I have the opportunity to talk to guys that I look up to in the industry, because there's a mutual respect and I can just call them when I want to, based off of my successes. But in the past, I didn't have that opportunity. I couldn't do that to that degree. Like I could always email and so on and so forth. But for me, it was always about self-education. It was always about trying to find little details here and there with my own experiments and my own experiences. And what I want to do is want to make it a little bit easier for those individuals trying to make it, and trying to come up and do what I do, or do what, their favorite, individual that they're looking up to does. And at the end of the day, it's all about work. It's putting in the work ethic. No matter what, you have to have effort. You have to have intent to everything you do. You have to have focus on everything you do, and you have to follow through. One thing that I can say that I wish I did more was following through with certain things that I could have made phenomenal, right? And it was focus issues and organizational issues that deterred me from doing that. So now I try to reiterate that to the people that I'm mentoring, to the young coaches that I have with me, and then to myself too. I always have to check myself and reiterate the fact that you're not going to let something of this magnitude slip away, and you're not going to let your disorganization, because of the fact that you're not doing all the things that you need to do on a constant basis. Always have to organize, always have to schedule. You always have to have a strategic approach to everything. Strategy over tactics is what I say. Strategy is going to help you win the ultimate game. The tactics is what you're going to do inside of the game, right? So for there, I always have to have that strategy in the beginning of the year. And that's your overall game plan. That's your business plan, right? For life. It's having a strategy. And then from there, you can pick those tactics to allow you to get to where you want to be.
Incredible. No, you touched on there, like helping other people. Like I feel like the more people you help, the more good things come to you. And obviously with your YouTube channel that you have, it's incredible because you're actually putting out content that like if you're training with Dustin Poirier, you're showing what he's doing. So if someone enjoys watching stuff like that, they can do it themselves at home. And it's just incredible that you're doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I think it was more so needed for the fact that, like, I know that there was a lot of guys doing great, putting out a lot of great content. But the problem was people weren't really listening to them because they don't have a Dustin Poirier. They didn't have anybody that they could showcase it with. I'm not doing anything really different than those guys. I'm just basically doing that with these individuals that are very high level, but I knew that that was going to get a lot of eyes on it because of that fact. And so if this works for this individual, man, take a look at this guy that's doing the same kind of thing. It may not be working for, an elite level fighter because he's not working with them, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. So you have to look at it like that too as well. Because there's a lot of great guys out there that don't have any following, right? On Instagram, on social media or whatever. And they're phenomenal coaches, which is it's a shame in all actuality. And that's why I also want to help those guys out too. I got guys that I know that are super smart, way smarter than me, way more intelligent from a schooling perspective, PhDs and master's degrees, but they just don't know how to articulate it appropriately enough for people to want to listen. So that's where I want to bridge the gap there, is from academia to real world application.
Of course, no, it's amazing. Yeah, like I really respect what you're doing and everything that you have done so far. I advise everyone to go and check you out on social media, to go and check your programs out because I know they're phenomenal. Like before I came on the podcast today, I messaged one of my friends. I said, "Oh, I've got Phil Daru coming on the podcast," and he's like, "Oh my God, his programs I've heard are incredible." So yeah, it's amazing. But just I'll ask you one last question now before I let you go because I know obviously you're a busy person. What would you say to yourself if you could go back in time? What advice would you give yourself that would change?
Again, I'll go back to it. Stay focused, follow through, and organize your days every day. That's three things that I would say that has helped me catapult to the next level was staying focused, following through with what I say, and also organizing my days and my life in general, throughout the years. And then also having a purpose each and every day, going through it. I did one thing very well all my life, which is work hard as shit, right? Always put my head down and grind. Like I had no issues with that whatsoever. Even if I didn't know why I was doing it, I would work hard at it. And for that, that's working harder, but not working smarter. And I know that's a cliche, but you definitely want to work smart and you want to put the effort into things that is going to progress you, because you can work hard at anything. It may not be conducive to the overall goal, right? It may not be something that's going to elevate your life. So look at it like that. Pinpoint what you need to work hard in and then go after that. So that would be one thing that I would tell myself at a younger age.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate your time. What I'll do, guys, I'll leave all of Phil's social media down below, his YouTube, his Instagram, his programs. Go and check him out. I actually can't wait until the apparel comes out. So
Yeah,
I'm going to definitely get one of them for sure. But yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Phil. And I wish you the best. I can't wait to be in Florida next time. I'll come and
yeah, definitely,
visit your,
definitely come on.
yeah.
Definitely come on. I'll make sure I have a couple of shirts and hoodies for you when you come out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Phil. Thank you. Take it
All right,
easy.
thank you.